So hello everyone, this is OK here, and I'm just going to do a very super short stream, um, continuing on from a stream last night where I was looking at some highlights from the Crazyhouse World Championship um, bullet portion in 2019. Um, sorry, the bullet Crazyhouse World Championship. These are the standings. So as you can see, Opperwesen is in first place with 145 game points, having finished all his matches. Having won 6 out of his 7 matches. Jan Lee is 20 points behind him on 125 points, having won all his matches, but he's still got one game to play against Little Plotkin. But the format of this tournament was games won counts, not matches won, so Opperwesen would still win the candidates if Jan Lee does not secure 20 points, 20 games out of 30 against Little Plotkin. And that match will be happening on Sunday. So check it out in the Crazyhouse calendar. And as you see here, third is Chicken Crossroad, who's also finished all his matches. Fourth, Penguin. Fifth, Master Tan. Sixth at the moment, Little Plotkin, but he has got 2 matches remaining, so he may well leapfrog those above him. Blitz Bullet also with 2 matches remaining, and finally Variance Only, who will be playing, in fact, against Blitz Bullet this evening at 9:30, at 8:30, sorry, at 7:30 UTC. So you have to adjust that to your own time zone. And that's not completely confirmed yet, but yeah, look out for that tonight. Now, last night I went through some of these puzzles and interesting positions from the Crazyhouse World Championship. Oops, that kind of gave it away. And I was trying to solve the puzzles on stream. What I want to do for you today, because I've got a very short amount of time, is to just quickly run through some of these other highlights. So this will really be a genuine highlight stream. And the first match we're going to look at is Jan Lee against Chicken Crossroads. Jan Lee found the mate with Queen takes Knight, takes, Bishop takes C7 check, protected by this bishop. What happened in the game was the king went to C8 and there was mate immediately. If the king had gone here, there's still a mate in 2 with bishop to D6. Note, you can't move this bishop to D6 because this bishop is pinned. King to D8 at C7, so it's mate in 3 actually. King C8 and knight E7 checkmate. Okay, so that was a nice one. So this is a mate, Jan Lee against Chicken Crossroad. I think it might have been, yeah, a missed mate because Jan Lee played Queen E6. So the move he missed was simply Queen E7 checkmate. No doubt in time travel because this is bullet. Okay, next. Jan Lee, Chicken Crossroad is white against Jan Lee, and the wonderful move in this position is Rook at H6. It's a magnet mate. You draw the king onto a checking square, and then you take either the pawn or the knight. So actually what happened in the game was taking the knight. King takes, knight at E6 check, king F7, queen at G7. Note that if the king were to take the knight, knight here is checkmate. So king went back. A new knight at C7 is checkmate. Bishop at G5 also works. So the point is, if the king were to take the bishop, you have kind of dovetail mate with queen on H4. So king went back. Knight F6, and this cuts the king from running away. So we have checkmate. Okay, Jan Lee is white in this game against Chicken Crossroads, and this is a very so it's not so simple because the bishop is covering. So we actually need to use the rook. And quite cunning, yeah, we need to use the rook on H8. G7 doesn't work because otherwise he could slide across to H8. So rook at H8, he takes, then pawn at G7, and now knight and queen is checkmate. Very nice. So this is Jan Lee against Chicken Crossroad. His king is in a precarious situation. Actually, what happened in the game was king to D1, which turned out to be a terrible mistake because of rook takes knight. and now there's a threat of a fork, so it's not easy to recapture. So what happened in the game was queen e1 at f2, takes, trying to defend, and chicken crossroad won that one. But if you go to e1, then the same kind of stuff doesn't work. If he takes f3, you just take back, f2 check, king f1, and white is actually doing fine. Black only has a knight in hand. With all these pieces in hand, white is actually winning this game. And if instead of at f2, if black tries knight f2, just queen g2, knight takes d3, pawn takes d3, pawn here. So again, nothing. If instead of knight takes d3, if black tries at h3, you can even sack the queen for 2 knights, and that queen can't really do anything. And you've got a big attack. Okay, next, chicken is white here against Jan Lee. As I said, this is just going to be a speedy thing. I'm not even going to be able to respond to comments in chat. I'm sorry about that. We're just going to quickly race through some of these highlights. Chicken is white, queen takes h7, at g7, f5. Often, pawns are wonderful for sparking attacks, and if you're threatening to take something with check. And so black is in a bit of a quandary. Do we take this pawn or do we not take it? No, I'm kind of mixing things up. I meant white is in a quandary to take this pawn or not to take it. So if you don't take it, you actually run into some dangerous waters. Knight g3 and then takes, and knight takes pawn. Okay, and so apparently black is still worse, but the attack has been neutralized at least. But if white were to make the mistake at this point, so taking next is good. If you were to make the mistake of actually taking the second time, now you're in real trouble, because you're losing a rook at g3, and you can't... let's have a look. If you go king h1, rook at h2, king here, oh yeah, knight. So I was going to go knight checkmate, but it doesn't work because it's protected. So I'm going to have to just play through the engine line. If this, oh, it's protected by this. Okay, so it's all very easy. Rook back to h2 here. Oh, well, that's very pretty. So that bishop on the long diagonal just comes in, and now that king is mated. So notice it's stuck on the back rank. So that's why in this position you have to take this pawn, and then apparently there's a mate on the board with a bishop and a rook, and a pawn here takes, and you win a rook with check, and then the rook here is checkmating. Okay, so that's actually a very useful pattern to have in mind with a knight, bishop, and a rook. Worth having that pattern in mind. So check, check again. He has to take it, and then sacrifice the rook. So I think that's an important pattern. I said this. Yeah. Maybe I'll promote that a little. Okay, so that's what happens if you go king h1. But if you go king takes h2, bishop f4, block, and suddenly you have this problem. You have to defend e6, g6, and it's pretty hard. So you can go knight f8, it's best try, e6, king f6, takes, queen f7, and you're trying to defend, you're losing a lot of material. If you were to sacrifice the knight, to try and do this, then unfortunately the queen comes in here, king g8, pawn here, rook here, clearing away the back rank, and that's also checkmate. So just to show that a bit more slowly. I mean, probably lots of ways to mate. Take the knight with check. Actually, even sack the queen because we have another queen in hand. And checkmate. Okay, chicken crossroad here was white against Jan Lee. And this was a game Jan Li was trying in the candidates this move h6 g5. And knight. Okay, so chicken goes for knight takes g5, bishop takes queen, and knight takes f7. And I think I selected this game because this is the correct way to play for white here, although it didn't. Something I can maybe turn. Didn't all go to plan. So white is winning here, just although the best, yeah, bishop takes f2 is good. At e2, knight takes h6 check, strong. Pawn at g7 is strong. King takes g7, knight f5, king h7. And apparently checking the king to bring it even further back and then taking the bishop is also good. But okay, this is still, white still should have some kind of initiative, but apparently bishop to f3, g4. So somewhere along here, white missed a win. So pawn at g7, for example, is strong. Knight g3 just here is apparently also good. But okay, he went for this. Queen takes knight, and then hitting the queen. So knight here apparently is good. But okay, and we're just going to see how Jan Li wins this game now. Takes the rook. Blocks off the king's escape, and finishes the game off. So despite the fact the opening was not entirely sound, it was just a nice nice example of Jan Li just somehow defending his two queens and coming back. This is chicken against Jan Li, black to play, and there's simply a mate in one. Okay, next one, Jan Li was white against chicken crossroad in this one. Check. Just creating a hole on g7. So this is quite a complicated mate. At g7 takes, and now the queen is coming in, and it's very strong. The bishop. But there is queen takes d5, but now you're capturing the queen with check, so it's all going to be over. Notice you don't play the check with the queen here. Why not? Because king would go here, pawn would go here, king would go here. There's no obvious mate. So you need to leave the queen for last often. Obviously if he takes this pawn, queen here is checkmate as well. Okay. This is now white was chicken crossroad against Jan Li. And what do we have here? This is following actually mainline opening theory. Knight g5, queen e7. So he can't take this queen because of this. It's not directly mating, but okay. So white takes knight, tries to defend, takes c7, and here white has mate with at h6. Just putting stuff on h6 and f6. g7 is very weak. At h6, and black resigned. So I think it was a good, and notice also that against this, maybe taking it would have been better, but it's not a forced mate, but at h6 still comes. And maybe even queen takes bishop, but I'm guessing here bishop g5, but knight h5 is also strong. Okay, let's get back to the puzzles. Jan against chicken, white to play. So my immediate thought is, does only queen h6 or stuff work? But apparently it was queen takes h5 is the move. And that picks up a knight with check, and the king is cut off and it's all over. And that's what happened. Chicken against Jan, white to play. White's in check. So it might be tempting just to slide across. But that's actually not such a strong move, because then bishop takes f3, and there's a huge threat on g2, which is really hard to defend. So it's actually a smart move here to sack the queen, even though you're losing the queen with check. So it's one of those rare instances losing the queen with check is good, because now there's no longer a knight controlling g2. So after bishop takes f3, we actually have mate. Rook takes rook, knight takes. Notice that if king takes, we can just go rook here, block him off, and then checkmate. So he has to go knight takes. So knight takes, and then we force him to h7 because we've got a knight on f8, which can check him on h7, and then this is checkmate. So queen takes e2, knight takes e2 here. Bishop to h7 is a good defensive move. Swap, swap, and actually the best move for white here is queen at f8. So if black does nothing, then queen takes g7 is the threat. Bishop at f8, king h8, g7, king h7, and rook h8 here, and knight h4. So this knight controls those two squares, and that knight controls this one. Okay, so next position, chicken against Jan, sacks the queen. He's only got a rook and a pawn in hand. Sacks the rook, so you can pick up the knight with check, and now finish it off. So very nice mating combination, beginning with the queen sack. If the king had come up to g3, you've just got rook g2 here, and we have checkmate. So king has to go back to g1. So beautiful sack of the rook in the corner. You need that knight with check, and then you can mate with the knight. That's a very nice little combination. So Jan Lee against chicken. Jan was white. You draw the king to the corner where the king can be mated, because we're going to just take the rook and mate in the corner. And that's checkmate. Next one is still chicken against Jan. So we had a lot of puzzles from this game. Knight h3, check. So obviously you have to take it, because otherwise we have the standard smothered mate with queen at g1, rook takes, and knight takes f2 is smothered mate. So you have to take it. So now we have two pawns and a queen. So it's not obvious that you have mate here at all. But remember, there's a battery here. So you can actually just sack the queen, come on with the next queen, and checkmate. So this one, black to play, and this is Jan to play. Knight here, check, takes. And the problem is this square is covered by the knight. So what have we cleared? Going to have to sack the rook just to get in on dark squares, because dark squares are not defended. And if this, then we have this checkmate. So he has to take, and then we have queen there check, and the pawn mates. So queen covers dark squares, pawn covers light squares. Okay, chicken against Jan. Jan was black. Took the rook. And checkmate. And if you try and defend, you just take anything in the way. So Jan against chicken. Jan is white. And he has the following mating combination. Queen takes f7 check. Better take it. And kind of standard mate. Knight supporting the queen. So it's not quite mate. So how to finish it off. So this check takes back. We're going to work on the dark squares with a bishop here, and for this we just need pawns to finish it off. Oh, bishop's much nicer. Yeah, because if we went pawn here, you'd still have knight takes pawn, so that's not quite right. not quite working. So okay, so sacks the queen because he has the knight check to follow it up. Okay, next one. There's a mate in 1, queen at h6. That was Jan against chicken. This is also Jan against chicken. And this is towards the end. Jan Lee started dominating a lot towards the end of this match. And I thought this was a nice game. So Jan is white. It's got a big battery on these dark squares. So sacks a piece for 2 pawns, which is reasonable. So he loses the queen. Do you take the queen? No, you take the bishop, because it comes with much more initiative. And then you take a second piece. And check, check. Gets the queen in. And, well, there must be mate somewhere here. So I think they're both scrambling. They're both 5 seconds, chicken's on 0 seconds. But this game still continues on 0 seconds. Chicken plays a long time on 0 seconds. I mean, just like from this point in the game, chicken is on 4 seconds, but he plays all these moves. And now he's on 3 seconds. So chicken is really tough. And so, of course, there's some mismates along the way. But just all these moves that chicken makes in 0 time. This is game 29. Chicken was white, Jan's black. It's black to play. And there's a mate in 5. Very nice. Knight f3. You want the double check, and then another knight. And it's a pawn to mate. Just a pretty combination. In game 30, I thought we saw this. So I'm now very confused. Oh, so this is actually very similar to it's quite similar to another position, but okay. Queen takes f8, distracts the bishop, we can then move in the knight. So it ejects the king, and then that's checkmate. Okay, so it's just the king was so smothered it reminded me of a position we saw earlier in the earlier highlights. I'm completely out of time, but let's just quickly rush through some other ones. So this is from the match Opperweisen against Master Tan. And Master Tan goes for this Queen h4 stuff as black. And I think the point of this was to say that rook takes b8 here was very interesting. He can't take with the queen, so he has to take with the king, and then you take the queen. And this is now much more powerful. You don't even need to go for a direct mate, you can just pick up the rook, and you're very safe. And white is winning. But what happened in the game was queen takes c7, queen takes queen first, and yeah, it's not so strong without that knight. And now both sides, I mean, Master Tan as black is flagging here. And in the end does indeed flag. Okay, so let's do some more mates. Knight d2 check. So the idea is if you move the king, pawn here is checkmate, so it takes the rook. Now what? Takes, and now we're hitting the queen and we're threatening rook at h1 checkmate. So really, really hard to stop. Okay, that was Jan Lee as black against Penguin. Okay, so this is Jan Lee against... Let's just look at the puzzles. We don't have time to... So Jan Lee missed a nice idea apparently in this position. He played queen takes f2. Yeah, this is a very nice idea actually. You can actually go bishop takes f2, rook takes f2, and then at h2. And if he goes here, you take the rook. And if he goes here, then you promote. So here takes the rook. And yeah, black is very, very safe. So here Jan mated penguin, so white to play, he sacks his queen, and I think I know what I would do. I was thinking I would... Okay, he puts the knight on, puts the bishop on, puts the rook on, puts the pawn on, and then I was thinking back rank, but just knight takes pawn is checkmate straight away. Okay, let's just focus on... Okay, so penguin here missed mate as white, and I think he just took this bishop. So the game continued, takes, and he's trying to mate, but he... Sorry, that would have mated if he'd done queen at h6. Queen h6 takes rook and checkmate. What actually happened in the game was he just took back. He didn't do queen h6. He just took back this bishop. The king escaped, and out of nowhere, Jan Li got a mate. I mean, that is just a perfect illustration of the power of Jan Li. Of course, g3, king takes g3. White is winning, but this is both in low time. And he just creates a mating layer. Queen takes bishop is no good because then you pick up the queen with check. That's also mating. In low time, he finds a mate. But look, in this original position, at f6, king takes f6, knight takes pawn, takes. If the king goes back here, then queen here, and knight coming in is just going to be checkmate. So king e6 is the best try, queen at e7, but now the king is between two files on a single open square, and knight c7 is checkmate. I have some commentary on opening lines. I'll share the studies later, so I'm just going to share the puzzles. Except that I just realized I didn't actually put these as puzzles. I put them within the game. So here, Jan Li as penguin. Jan, amusingly in this game, played knight to g5. It's a pure bullet move, and everyone in chat was like, "What?" Because it looks like it's hanging the knight. It looks like it's hanging the queen. Like what? What happened in the game was black was spooked and played bishop g6. But of course the best move is just, okay, I'll take that queen. You can take me on f7 and go straight in for an attack. And black's attack is much faster here. Takes here, knight e2 check. Takes here, takes the rook with check. And that's checkmate. So, and if black is more conservative and say goes for, that's not more conservative, but goes for knight it takes e6, that's also an interesting idea because at least it's got some threat. If you take, yeah, you could even take back this knight and it's perfectly safe, but the same kind of ideas. Takes. This is also, so apparently not checkmating, but very strong. Anyway, so the next one we're looking at is white was Jan Li against penguin. White actually flagged with a mate in 2 on the board with rook at h1 and queen takes pawn checkmate. But Jan unfortunately ran out of time before being able to play that. This is white penguin against Jan Li, where penguin went for knight a4 here, which is quite amusing. And he hung, Jan Li hung his bishop, so just like a little pre-move trick. Game ended in a rather amusing way. The queen ends up on g4 with a dangerous threat, which was overlooked, and penguin came in with the win. So in this one, Jan Li missed a mate, but he won anyway. So what's the move for black here? Queen at d2. Oh, very nice. So even though d2 is defended, it opens up the f-file. So you just come in and mate. Very nice. Blitz Bullet. So now we're going to turn to the match. Blitz Bullet against Jan Leave. So Blitz Bullet missed the mate here in time pressure. And so the excellent move he played, yeah, this is a really beautiful move he played. Queen takes b2. So it looks like a queen sack. But what it's doing is it's bringing the bishop away from g7, and the bishop is a brilliant defender on g7. So then the move is knight f6, and that's actually interfering with the bishop's defense of g7. And if you don't take that bishop, you're getting mated. So if you don't take that knight, rather, you're getting mated with this at g7, king takes g7, knight h5. If you go back, pawn here mates, so king here, and then knight here just cuts off this square. So this is the only move, and bishop here is checkmate. So taking is necessary. Takes, king h8. But we have a lot of stuff here, and still enough. So he found the initial move, queen takes b2, but he missed the follow-up. In fact, he was just pre-moving, and I think he pre-moved knight at h5 instead of going at g7. So Jan Lee mated Blitz Bullet here with queen here, and beautiful checkmate. The bishop's cut off the king. This is a game, and although it's a game I want to share, it's quite interesting. So Blitz Bullet is white, Jan Lee is black. Blitz Bullet plays this setup with very safe king. And he goes for this knight h4 idea. And queen takes h4 is a really interesting move from Jan Lee. And Jan Lee usually followed it up in the match with knight at g6 or knight at f6. But there's a really interesting novelty idea I wanted to share, which was knight at f3. The point being that if you take with the bishop, you've taken away the king's defender and you're in on g2. So you take with the pawn. But then this opens up a fork on the queen, which isn't just a fork on the queen and winning the queen, but it's also a mate threat on h2. And so that would be checkmate. So the best defense is knight at h2, and then a wonderful move here is queen to g6. So when he takes back, you sack your queen and then come in on these light squares. And this is a critical situation if you do this, because king g1 and white is actually okay. You can take the rook and you can try and do stuff, but white has quite a big material advantage. And although Stockfish might sometimes say maybe black does have some ideas, it's definitely playable. But if you take this bishop, then you're running into mates with g4 check. Sorry, actually here you're not running into mates because you can still run back to g2 and you're okay. But you're running into danger. If you take at g4, you must run back. If you take on g4, then the bishop is cut. The bishops are now cutting your escape, and it's all over. So it's just a beautiful, fast attack, even though you've given away the queen. White's got two queens in hand, but it's all over. So generally, as white hangs mate here, rook at g1, smothered mate, classic trick. And now Jan Lee is black. He missed a mate actually in this position with bishop takes h3, king takes h3, and rook at g3. The king goes to h4, knight f3, and pawn is mate. If the king goes to h2, knight f3, and pawn is also mate. And so why did he take this bishop in the first place? Why not go, say, king f2? But then these bishops are mating immediately. Or why not go to king h2? And the knight can come in, and if you then take the bishop, this is also directly checkmate. So bishop takes h3 was actually quite a powerful move in this position. And I think this is quite a pretty picture. The knights and bishops combining. Okay, so Blitz Bullet against Jan Lee, and Jan Lee, did he find this? So I think he did find it. He promotes, bishop takes, and knight at h2. Maybe he didn't find it, we'll see. He promoted, takes, but then he didn't find the full follow-up. But he did win this game in any case. So knight h2 is the mating move, forces king to e2. At f3, defended by the queen, so if you take it, we just take back. So king just goes for a runner. Take the bishop, he tries to block. Notice if he does this, we just go pawn here, and then check, and then we're taking the rook with check, and we're taking the queen with check, and this is checkmate. So he tries to block first and then run. So as a principle, usually for check, even if the square is actually defended, if you can maintain the block, you should go for it, usually. Bishop f4, trying to cut. This is a very nice move, trying to cut the king's escape. Very uncomfortable. King has to actually run up. Queen takes rook. Bishop stops. So notice the bishops are cutting the king here. And so the only question is how to use the rook. Well, the answer is, well, its problem is we want rook here and pawn here, but we don't have a pawn. So fortunately we have bishop takes pawn check. So now if he blocks, rook here is checkmate. So he runs up. And I was thinking rook here, but then he runs back here. But then a pawn is checkmate. Okay, so that would also be another way of doing it. But you can also do it just with pawns without your rook. Okay, so that was just a nice mating idea. So Jan Lee against Blitz Bullet. Jan Lee is white. How to mate here. So the key is to distract this rook, which is protecting g7. So queen here, check. Forces to take, and this is checkmate. Jan Lee mates Blitz Bullet here. Just bishop here. Obviously you can't go to g8, b8 because this is checkmate with the queen. So he goes here. Bishop takes pawn. Very beautiful mate happened in the game. King can't run any further. If he goes back, queen here is checkmate, so he has to take the bishop, and then we have the dovetail. I think it's a dovetail mate. So he also mated Blitz Bullet in this game with a very pretty idea. Knight g3, takes. So king g1 might seem like a better idea because you're not losing the rook with check. But then you've got bishop e3. So why can't we just block it off? Knight e2, king h1, a new knight on g3. So takes. You're winning this rook anyway with check. So not much you can do about this. It's a double check, so we have to move it and rook here. So king g1 isn't much better. So king h2, take the rook, double check. And if we went to the corner, rook at g1 is mate, so king f2. Also, if you did king f1, knight g3, and this is checkmate as well. So rook at g1, and pawn here, and knight here is checkmate. And actually, this is actually quite a pretty mating construction with the bishop, a bishop and knight on the board in this way. I took away all black's pieces, and he just has two pawns and a knight. We can always just do this kind of mate. So takes, king here. And with that rook, okay, we don't take the rook yet. We try and deflect this bishop, because rook here will be checkmate. So blocks, we sack queen, and we got another piece in hand and can checkmate. What if he didn't block with the knight? What if he blocked with a bishop? But then we can also sack with the bishop, and bishop at d2, king here, and rook here is checkmate. So whatever white blocks with. So this is quite a pretty construction. Knight at g3, takes, and we're winning the rook. So yeah, the power of this bishop on f4. And there are lots of variations. So Jan actually flagged in this one, but it was a nice idea. Pick up the rook and go rook here, checkmate. But impressive play from Blitz Bullet, defending. And in fact, this is the best defense. Queen at g8, takes the queen, just defend, bishop here. White has to take all black's pieces, but okay. This is a defensive idea, which I won't go into. So here, black to play and mate, and the game was found. Queen takes knight, and knight here checkmate. Very pretty. If white had taken with the king, knight here check, bishop here check, and pawn here would be checkmate. But what happened in the game was, I think, amazing. Queen takes, and knight here checkmate. What a beautiful construction with your 4 knights. And there's an amazing game between Blitzbullet and Jan. So Jan is tilting, he's losing this match, and he starts playing the Sicilian, which is not a good opening in Crazyhouse because of the weak c7 square. And yet, he plays almost perfect moves in this first game where he tried the Sicilian. And actually, already black is actually doing okay here. He starts unpicking the pawn chain. And black is just better suddenly. So I thought it was just a beautiful example of how good Blitzbullet is in unfamiliar positions. And he has a checkmate now with queen here check, queen f2 checkmate. Didn't find it for some reason. Instead sack the knight and put a knight on. And yeah, suddenly it's not clear that he's winning anymore. But he ended up winning the game on time. So this is Jan missed the mate here as black, but he won the game anyway. Knight g5 check, pawn here and pawn here was the checkmate. If the king tries to go back to e2, you invade with the queen. And a very nice idea. You don't. The problem is you're afraid of the king running to here, so you actually go knight here check first, and then queen takes bishop. I think anyone in this position would just go queen takes bishop straight away. And that is also mating very shortly. So bishop at c4, king to d4, and knight to c6, for example, will do the job. So Jan Lee against Blitzbullet. So Blitzbullet is black. Knight at d3 check takes, and knight here checkmate. I think that was played in the game. No, hang on. Knight d3 check. Yeah, this was played in the game, I think. But white could take with the queen, but then you win the queen, and that wasn't played. And this is another game. Blitzbullet. He did come back a bit at the end of the match. So he mated Jan Lee in this game. Took the rook, bishop, pawn, and yeah, it's checkmate. There was also rook at g8. Takes, checkmate. And for this penultimate thing I want to show you in this stream, well, this is just coming in on g7. So Blitzbullet mated Jan Lee in that game. And finally, Blitzbullet actually mated Jan Lee in the very last game of the whole series. He had the last laugh despite losing the series. Bishop takes bishop, king takes, knight e5, king here. What happened in the game was bishop to f5, king takes knight, and knight f7 mate. So a very stylish mate to finish, to end from Blitzbullet. So my first reaction here would go bishop to f7, which is also mating. So king takes, rook e6, checkmate also works. But even prettier was what happened in the game with the knight on f7, stopping the king running back. Okay, so that was just a very short stream sharing some of these positions from the Crazyhouse World Championship. I stayed longer than I should have done. I'm sorry I haven't responded to chat. Just to show you quickly the final the almost final standings. We focused on a couple of games just then, and Variance Only will be playing against Blitzbullet. So we saw Variance Only. We saw Chicken Crossroad. We saw Jan Lee against Chicken Crossroad. This one, which actually Jan Lee won 21-9. We saw Jan Lee against Blitzbullet, which was a much tighter affair, 17-13. We saw a few other things, but that hopefully gives you a taste of the candidates of the Crazyhouse World Championship 2019, which will be the candidates will be these last 3 matches will be completed soon. Lil Plotkin against Jan Lee is on Sunday. Variance Only against Blitzbullet is tonight, and little plotkin against Blitz Pullet will also be happening shortly. Okay, so thanks everyone for watching. I hope you enjoyed this. Not such an instructive stream, more kind of giving you a taste of some nice action that's been happening over the past months, and completing the previous video, which was where I was more going slower and trying to solve the puzzles myself. Okay, so thanks everyone for watching, and bye.